On the surface, Hoodwinked is a pretty simple mystery movie. It takes the classic Little Red Riding Hood fairy tale and spins it into a whodunit style crime story. When a forest falls victim to the Goody Bandit, a thief stealing recipes from local bakers, several fairy tale characters are brought in for questioning. As their stories unfold and begin to overlap, it becomes clear that nothing is as it first appeared, and no one is all that innocent. With the help of frog detective Nicky Flippers, they eventually uncover the truth. Boingo the rabbit was the culprit and had been orchestrating the crimes to build his snack empire and take over the forest. At least, that's the story. But some have speculated that it's not the whole truth, that it wasn't actually Boingo who committed the theft, and digging into how the story is told, Hoodwinked might not be so black and white. Most of the film covers 4 main stories that all converge at Granny's house. Each character is a suspect, but it's how they got there that's important. It starts with Red, goody delivery girl, karate champion, and granddaughter to Granny Puckett, the most famous baker in the forest.
Your recipes are the most famous in the whole forest, Granny. What if they get swiped? It could wipe you out.
Early on, Boingo is shown to be Red's friend, and he doesn't seem very suspicious. After receiving a warning in the form of a rock with the words "You're next," she decides that her grandma's cookbook isn't safe at her house anymore. So Red ventures out to deliver it to Granny for safekeeping. After falling out of a cable car with Boingo, she's stopped by Wolf, who wants to know what she has in the goodie basket. Red just assumes Wolf wants to eat her or her desserts and manages to escape the wolf. She takes a minecart with a goat, escapes an avalanche, and makes it to Granny's. But as the Little Red Riding Hood story goes, she's met with the wolf impersonating her grandmother, with the real Granny tied up in the closet. But how did he get there? The wolf in this version of the story is an investigative journalist who has spent the last 6 months investigating the Goody Bandit mystery, which is why he has a knack for disguises. He becomes suspicious of Red and wonders who she moves the goodies for and where they come from.
The girl in the hood. You get around the mountain. Who does she work for?
How should I know? I ain't that curious. It's the family business. Ain't you ever heard of Granny Puckett?
Wolf mistakenly determines that Granny and Red are guilty, so he sets out to get more information. After Red falls from the cable car into the woods, Wolf confronts her about the basket, which of course backfires, and she gets away. He's approached by Boingo, who gives Wolf a poorly written shortcut to Granny's. Regardless, he eventually arrives and uses her merchandise to disguise as Granny, who's already tied up in the closet. She was tied up by accident, and Wolf didn't even know she was in there. Granny isn't just a famous baker, and leads a double life. She's actually an extreme sports daredevil, and on this particular day, she was attending a skiing competition with her group. Before the race, she encounters Boingo, who asks for her autograph. One of Boingo's crew members sabotages Granny and her friends, but she still manages to win the race and escape on a parachute, but not without causing an avalanche. She glides home, drops into the chimney, but gets tied up in her parachute and thrown into the closet. Wolf arrives and disguises himself. Red arrives shortly after, and then there's the woodsman, Kirk Kirkendall, the most unassuming character of all. When Kirk's story begins, it quickly becomes clear that he's fallen on hard times, struggling to land acting roles in commercials. He runs a food truck that sells schnitzel, but his true dream is to join his favorite traveling singing group, the Happy Yodelers. He was auditioning to advertise a product called Paul's Bunion Cream, which requires him to play the role of a lumberjack.
Paul's Bunion Cream has the soothing formula.
It goes terribly, so he goes back to work and ends up singing his schnitzel song with a group of children. But while they're distracted, his truck gets robbed.
They stole everything!
Oh, that's too bad. It's not easy being in the goodie business these days, huh?
Despite his audition going poorly, he gets his first ever callback, and they tell him to get in character and find his inner woodsman, so he conveniently goes around wildly chopping down trees while Boingo takes his vehicle. Eventually, he cuts down a massive tree, which rolls down a hill and leads him right into Granny's cottage at the moment of the incident. Now clearly, the woodsman is painted as a bumbling fool who only wanted to get in character for his first acting gig, and while it is evident that he isn't very bright, Kirk might not be as oblivious as he seems. Boingo's plan is to create a monopoly on the goodie market by eliminating all competition and building his Boingo Snacks empire. That doesn't just mean stealing recipes, it means clearing out enough of the forest to make room for mass production. But what's so special about Boingo Snacks? An active ingredient called boingonium, a highly addictive substance that consumers can't resist.
A little something I like to call boingonium. It makes my snacks a little more habit-forming.
And this is where Kirk Kirkendall enters the picture. It's already been established that he's down on his luck, stuck in a dead-end schnitzel truck job, failing to land roles, and clinging to his dream of joining the Happy Yodelers. It's not hard to imagine that someone at such a low point might be tempted to turn to a life of crime. With nothing going his way, Kirk would be an easy target for someone like Boingo, someone offering just enough cash and plausible deniability to finally fund his yodeling ambitions. But Kirk also has something Boingo desperately needs: distribution. When Kirk sings his schnitzel song with the kids, they seem almost zombified. They become completely entranced as soon as they hear the schnitzel song, because maybe they're all test subjects for boingonium. Boingo is using Kirk's schnitzel as an experiment run for the substance. How else would he know that it worked? While the hypnotized children follow Kirk, he accidentally leaves his truck behind to get robbed, then accidentally leaves it to get hijacked. He then starts cutting down trees, which helps clear out space for real estate, furthering Boingo's plan, and then conveniently interrupts the moment where the rest of the characters may have secured Granny's recipe book, made a connection to Boingo, and cracked the case. He might not be the sharpest tool in the shed, but there's too many coincidences in his story. The scenes in his story do make him out to be a victim, but there's one problem with trusting the credibility of these scenes. Early on in the film, it was made clear to the audience that these flashback sequences aren't actually the true canon versions of reality.
So then the fellow with the axe burst in.
No, not yet. First, I was attacked by that crazy wolf.
The story scenes are simply the characters accounting what happened and Detective Nikki's interpretation. Wolf and Red interact prior to the house, so those parts of the stories can be confirmed. Granny recognizes the skiers, sees Red at one point, and helps defeat Boingo at the end, so her story checks out. While some of Kirk's retelling is probably true, there aren't any witnesses brought in to confirm it, so there could easily be details altered or left out to serve his agenda. It makes sense why Boingo would approach Red because they're friends, at least that's what Red thinks. It makes sense why Boingo would approach the wolf because he's investigating the crime Boingo committed, and it makes sense why he would talk to Granny because he's trying to get her and her recipes out of the picture. But why is he with the woodsman? Why would he show himself if he was gonna raid and hijack his truck? When Boingo is finally revealed to be the main villain, it shows his point of view from the interactions. During his conversation with Granny, his evil plan is written down. It mentions Red sending the wolf on a goose chase and stealing Granny's recipe book. However, it doesn't once mention the woodsman or stealing his truck. Maybe because he didn't have to, and Kirk simply gave it to him. Each main character has a motive in one way or another, but arguably the biggest contribution to this theory is the way Kirk acts in the climax. When everyone is accused, no one gets more nervous and defensive than Kirk.
You were just out damaging forest property, cutting down the redwoods we all call home. Big guy like you could probably take whatever you want from little goody-loving creatures, couldn't you?
But someone robbed me! Have we lost track of that?
When the police leave, he smiles with relief. He then starts counting and looks up as if he's listening for something. Was it a countdown for when the other villains are supposed to arrive? Because that happens only moments later, and they show up on his transformed schnitzel truck of all things. When they go up to Boingo's lair to save Red and stop him, Kirk's body language says it all, constantly looking around suspiciously. When the wolf has the woodsman disguised as a goon, Boingo doesn't bat an eye, and even hears him mention Paul's bunion cream, but just seems more annoyed than anything. Kirk is so nervous that Wolf has to interrupt him.
Boss?
What? Say it! Spit it out! What's going on?
Boss, Paul's bunion cream has the soothing formula. And what he means to say is that I'm the building inspector.
He has a chance to capture one of Boingo's goons, but just stands still and lets him get away. He doesn't even try. He tries to play both sides so he won't get arrested if the plan backfires. And sure enough, Boingo and the rest of the crew get sent to jail while Kirk gets away scot-free. He gets exactly what he wants and joins the yodeling group. It's worth pointing out that one of the members has an interesting hat choice. The theory suggests Kirk is secretly an accomplice to Boingo, maybe just to distribute Boingonium and lend him a vehicle, or maybe he has an even more significant role. He's a big guy, and as Detective Nicky states, he could probably take whatever he wanted. Kirk could be on call to execute small-scale recipe robberies and interfere at the right place and time. In one way or another, it's very much possible that Kirk is on Boingo's payroll. He doesn't seem to have any malicious intent in the second movie, but it doesn't take away from his actions in the first. It is just a theory, and it's up to interpretation, but there is plenty of supporting evidence. Kirk was an unassuming character, but who else seemed that way at first? The movie makes it clear that no one is as innocent as they first appear.